Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Raka Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Philippians, the second chapter. If there be, therefore, any consolation in Hamashiach, consolation being any comfort, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies. Let's read that in the NLT. It says, if there, yeah, or encouragement. If is there any encouragement from belonging to Hamashiach, any comfort from his love, any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, and working together with one mind and purpose. Verse 2, same thing. Fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vain glory. See, and let's go into that word strife. It says here, same thing, going back to Philippians 1 about contention, those that teach for contention. This is basically trying to put yourself above everybody else, right? You're trying to seek that preeminence. You're trying to seek that top position. Paul's saying here, but in a contentious way, right? So don't let that be the purpose for doing anything or for seeking vain glory, but rather when you do things, do it in lowliness of mind, which is humility, being humble. Let each esteem other better than himself, right? And this is the opposite. Basically saying like, be humble, right? Being opposite of high-minded and proud, thinking you're better than everybody else. It's rather more beneficial to think the opposite way. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. What this is saying is, don't just look out for yourself, but look out for your fellow believers as well. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Hamashiach Yahushai, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. So here, what it's saying is, what Paul is basically getting at here is, put on this humble mindset that Yahushai had. And Yahushai, being in the form of God, right, having the, he was the first begotten of the Father. He had glory up in the heavens, right? He was a power. Let's go into that word form. Right, it says here, external appearance, the form which a person or thing strikes the vision, his nature, right? So he was in the form and the nature of the Lord. He had power, he had glory, but he thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Let's go into that word robbery. In other words, it's saying he didn't hold it so highly as something to cling onto, right, at the expense of anything else, right? He didn't think of it as so much that he couldn't let go of it. So it says the word robbery is the act of seizing, robbery, a thing seized, booty, to deem anything a prize, a thing to be seized upon or held fast, retained. So what Paul is saying here is, Yahushai didn't consider the glory he had, being in the form of God in the heavens, as so much that he didn't want to ever let go of it. He was willing to let go of that in order to come down on the earth, okay, in a lower form. That's what it means by not thought it not robbery to be equal with God. Okay, so he was willing to humble himself and come down, take on the form of a man to go through the things he did, rather than saying, no, I'm gonna cling to this glory. I don't want to go down there and do that. I don't want to let go of this. So let's read verse 6 in another translation and then go on to verse 7. Right, NLT, it says, though he was, well, not here, he wasn't the Most High, but he was a divine being, right, a God. He did not think of equality with God, being in the equality here, meaning being in the form or the nature of the Lord. He did not think it as something to cling to, not in the sense that he thought it was worthless, but he wasn't so proud or so hung up on it that he wasn't willing to be able to let it go for a greater purpose. In fact, he was, and that was a part of his humility. Right, verse 7, it says, "But made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men." See, so he was willing to let go of that, to rather humble down and come of that glory and come down in the flesh, of no reputation, right? Not being reputable, not being um esteemed, okay, as on the earth as he was in the heaven, not yet, okay, um, and was made in the likeness of men. So he came in the flesh like a man, and being found in fashion as a man, right, as a human, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. That was a very great humbling thing the Lord did. Wherefore God also hath highly exalted him and given him a name which is above every name. This is why Paul is saying, "Let this mind be in you that was in him." Take that same kind of mindset Yahushua had, where he humbled himself so greatly to come down from the glory he had in the heavens on the earth as a man, and was obedient onto the death of the cross. And as a result, the Lord raised him up and exalted him above every name. So Yahushua is, like I said, like I've said before, second only to the Most High. Everything else is under him. That at the name of Yahushua, every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth. So everything is subject to Yahushua. And that every tongue should confess that Yahushua Hamashiach is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So that's the power that the Lord has given him, that he is so glorious that all have to confess and acknowledge that yes, this the Yahushua is Lord. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So he's saying, as you've always, followed my instructions, not just when I was there, but now more so that I'm not there, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Okay, seek that salvation, do whatever it takes, okay, to continue to walk in righteousness to attain that salvation. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. So it's the Spirit of the Lord that makes you desire to will and to actually do the things that are pleasing to him. Do all things, work without murmurings and disputings, right? Don't complain about it, and try to always argue, a point. Just serve the Lord, you know, in humility and lowliness of mind, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, right? In the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. So without rebuke, meaning that you carry yourself in a way where nobody would have anything, they wouldn't be able to say anything negative against you. That is the reputation of the sons of God in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. Because amongst you are people that are without, children of disobedience, children of wrath. So you have to be mindful how you move and operate. Among whom ye shine as lights in the world, because they're likened unto being in darkness, but you being enlightened by the Heavenly Father through Yahweh Shai, you shine as lights. So long as you walk in the light, holding forth the word of life. That because this word leads to what? Life. It leads to eternal life if you keep it and follow it. So Paul is saying, continue in this fashion, that I may rejoice in the day of Hamashiach, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. So continue in this fashion, so that when Yahweh, the day when the Lord comes back and we're all there, I can see you there, and I can be glad and know that all my work and labor, in bringing you up and nurturing you wasn't in vain. Yea, and if I be offered upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I joy and rejoice with you all. He's saying if I'm offered like an offering on top of your faith, then it's a beautiful thing for me. NLT, but I will rejoice even if I lose my life, pouring it out like a liquid offering to or a drink offering to God, just like your faithful service is an offering to God. And I want all of you to share that joy. For the same cause also do ye joy and rejoice in me. But I trust in the Lord Yahushua to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may be of good comfort when I know your state. So he's going to send Timothy onto them, and then, he would be able to, through Timothy, hear, what's the update, how are they doing, and so on. Remember, he's writing to them, right? For I have no man like-minded who will naturally care for your state. So he's saying there's nobody like, when it comes to you and to care for you, there's nobody like Timothy who naturally, actually sincerely cares about you. Not that the rest didn't care about, the believers, but he's saying Timothy is like, it doesn't get better than this. For all seek their own, not the things which are Yahushua Hamashiach's, but ye know the proof of him, that as a son with the Father, he hath served with me in the gospel. So Timothy was likened unto Paul's spiritual son. NLT, all the others care only for themselves and not for what matters to Yahushua. But you know how Timothy has proved himself. Like a son with his father, he has served with me in preaching the good news. So here Paul is speaking more generally in verse 21. He's not necessarily referring to those that were with him, but he's saying this to highlight the the um the joy or the passion that Timothy had when it came to the care of the church there. Him therefore I hope to send presently, so soon as I shall see how it will go with me. So as soon as I see how things are gonna fare with me here, I'm gonna send Timothy on to you. But I trust in the Lord that I also myself shall come shortly. So Paul is saying, I have faith that the Lord will have them release me, and I'll be able to come and see you. Yet I suppose it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, and companion in labor, and fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants. Here, the wording "but your messenger," in other words, is "and your messenger," okay, or who is also your messenger. So Paul is saying here, I'm thinking of sending. I think it's necessary. It's important to send Epaphroditus to you. Okay, he's been helping me out a lot. Um, who's also a messenger for you, and he that ministered to my wants. For he longed after you all, and was full of heaviness, because that ye had heard that he had been sick. So he was desirous to see them, but he was very sad because they would have heard that he was sick, and he didn't want them to worry. For indeed he was sick nigh unto death, but God had mercy on him. So he was sick to the point of almost dying, but the Lord had mercy on him, and not on him only, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. So Paul was saying that, the mercy the Lord showed him was also extended to Paul, because had he died, it would have been, Paul's already in sorrow with the situation he's in, and now, losing a beloved brother in the faith like that it'd have been a lot. I sent him therefore the more carefully, that when ye see him again, ye may rejoice, and that I may be less sorrowful. It says here in the NLT, so I am the more anxious to send him back to you, for I know you will be glad to see him, and then I will not be so worried about you. Receive him therefore in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such in reputation. Because for the work, so receive him, right, in gladness, and respect him as he deserves, right? Hold such in reputation. Because for the work of Hamashiach, he was nigh unto death, not regarding his life, to supply your lack of service toward me. See, so he's saying, like, in serving Yahushua and doing the work of the Lord, he didn't regard his life so that he could do for me the things you couldn't do, right? Considering that you were far away. NLT says, for he risked his life for the work of Yahushua, and he was at the point of death while doing for me what you couldn't do from far away. Because Paul was in Rome, they were in Philippi. And that brings us to the end of the book of Philippians, the second chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.